Do any of you guys work in advertising or marketing? Yeah? You should kill yourselves. Seriously, you are Satan's little helpers. There is absolutely no justification for what you do. You are the ruiner of all good things. You should think about that. So said him. That's Bill HIcks. That is my favorite comedian of all time. He's American. Sadly, he died 20 years ago. He was only 34. He was kind of a Texas Buddhist, if you can work that out. And he also had a magnificent rage against the machine. There will be a Tao of Bill one day, but to follow it, you'll have to listen to Jimi Hendrix at the same time to make sense of it. And he just hated marketing. Why? All those nice suited people, beautifully polished, adding value to every single thing they touch. What's not to like with these guys? Well, he thought they were evil. He thought they told a lot of lies. And he thought they saw the world through special spectacles that only revealed the dollar value of what was in front of him. Now, that's tricky for me because I love marketing. That's what I do. And my hero, Bill, says it's evil. So out of that tension came the idea for today's chat. What I really want to do is unpack how marketing used to work, how the world has changed, and how marketing will have to adapt to survive in this new world. But all Bill saw was money and lies. Now, that rang an ancient bell for me. Let's imagine we're back in Athens. It's 2,400 years ago. They're in the middle of this fabulous social experiment called democracy. It seems to be working. It may prove to be a runner. Who knows? But they're having a pretty good time with it at the moment. There are two guys who want to start a new school. It's these two guys here. But their problem is there's another school already, and it's run by this bunch of people called the Sophists. Now, Sophists are famously smooth thinkers. They can persuade you of anything. They have an answer for everything. But their answers tend to vary slightly, noticeably according to who's paying them at the time. These guys, that's Socrates over there on the left, that's Plato on the right. Beards were in then. These guys want to change that. So what they decide to do is they will pin this sort of flexible jelly that the Sophists keep abusing. They'll pin it all to the wall. So they decide they will pin things like truth, justice, courage, beauty, knowledge, what it is to be a good person. They'll come up with the definitions for those things, and that will then stop the Sophists being able to sort of move them all around to suit their own purposes. Thing is, they did such a fantastic job of pinning those to the wall that most of them are still in exactly the same place today. Now, I wish I could do such a good job with marketing for you. I wish I could pin that down. But marketing genuinely keeps moving the goalposts. If it's cool and trendy this year, it's jaded by next year. If it's interesting now, it's dull in a month's time. Marketing keeps moving on, but the central thing we do with marketing is pretty much the same. What we do is we try to change what you know or associate with a brand so that you will either want it more or value it more highly, or both, ideally. That's what we try to do. So notice I said we try to change what you either know or associate. We're going to do the know stuff first. I'm going to call changing what you know the declarative means of communication. We'll get back to changing what you associate later. We'll call that associative. So with this declarative thing, we're changing what you know. What you know is knowledge. Knowledge takes us straight back to Plato. Before Plato, the definition of knowledge was it's a true belief. Okay, if you believe something, turns out to be true, that's knowledge. Good definition? No, a lousy one. Let me exemplify why that's a really poor definition of knowledge. Let's make it now 18 minutes past 3 o'clock on the second Friday of March. We're at Cheltenham. We're at the horse races. The Gold Cup is about to start. The Gold Cup is the greatest race over hurdles in the world. It is 3¼ miles, there are 18 hurdles, and we're standing next to my friend Andy. And Andy knows that a horse called Mr. Grey is going to win. Andy has bet £1,000 on the fact that Mr. Grey is going to win, and he's been given odds of 3 to 1. So if that horse wins, he gets £4,000. If that horse loses, he's lost his money. He's out of it. The rope goes up. The horses set off. They go racing round. Now, Mr. Grey is nowhere near the front to begin with, but that's okay with Andy because Mr. Grey is a stayer. Mr. Grey is one of those horses that stays fit throughout the course, whereas the others go racing off in front. They all look incredibly elegant. They go charging round and so on. But as you get to the end of the second lap at Cheltenham, you come into the home straight, and the home straight at Cheltenham, you have to go over one fence, and just as we go over that fence, Mr. Grey is 2 or 3 horses behind, and then you see this terrible uphill that they have to go chasing up. As they go chasing up the hill, Andy's still quietly confident, Mr. Grey's pulling alongside the others. They first of all go past the Guinness tent. The Guinness tent is filled with drunken Irishmen who are all screaming with joy, and that it seems to encourage Mr. Grey. He gets even closer. Then they go past the Arkle bar. That's filled with people from the West Country who like to compete with the Irishmen for drinking. They're screaming as well. They go past there, and then they go past the main stand. That's where all the incredibly rich people are. And just as they get to the line, Mr. Grey's nose is in front. Mr. Grey has won. Andy is now bouncing around, waving a ticket in the air, absolutely delighted, £4,000 richer. I knew it, he is saying to anyone who will listen. I knew it. And his belief that Mr. Grey would win has proved to be true. But was that really knowledge? No, of course not. That was the result of dumb luck. No more, no less than dumb luck. And knowledge cannot be dependent on luck. It can't be dependent on a good guess. It can't be dependent on an accident. You need more than that. And this is exactly what Plato worked out 2,400 years ago. Dry mouth. It's something to do with the races. I always get excited. Please forgive me. That's what Plato worked out. You have to have, as well as a true belief, a justification, okay? Some good, solid reason for holding that belief to be true. Now, that can be, it can be a rational justification, if it's a sort of proofy thing, if it's a logic thing. It can be an emotional or a psychological justification, if it's something to do with the person. But you must have a rock-solid justification. The Platonic definition of knowledge, true, justified belief, still good today. We've added a couple of things in the last 2,500 years. We've worked out that knowledge is more about a sort of overall structure, and that whatever we want to add to knowledge kind of should fit the rest of what we know. We don't actually have, in English, a word for an individual piece of knowledge. We could call it a knowing. We have the word fact for a piece of truth, but that's not a piece of knowledge. It doesn't matter. We don't need that word because it's about a bigger picture. The second thing you need to know about knowledge is we all just sop it up. It's why we all come to TED Talks. We just love knowledge. We want it. Our minds are wired in such a way that we just sop knowledge up. The third thing about it is the greatest test of knowledge is time. There have been beautiful theories that have been around for hundreds of years that have then collapsed. It could be that the Earth is flat. It could be that the sun goes around the Earth. It could be all sorts of different things, but they tend to fold. It's not actually time that tests them. It's the number of inquiring, intelligent minds that sort of want to get their teeth into that and assess it and see if it's any good or not. And that's what makes this a TED Talk, because the number of inquiring, intelligent minds that are actively engaged with the knowledge we have and checking it has exploded. Not just in the 2,400 years since Plato, but in the 20 years since Bill. So the other thing you need to know about knowledge is the way it's delivered has changed too. It used to be delivered from an authoritarian position by someone in a position of wisdom. It could be a teacher, it could be a priest, it could be a president. And the rest of us would run around catching it and Our justification, the Platonic justification that we could accept, was that so-and-so, the great wise man or woman, had said so. That was good enough. Whereas what's happened now, what has completely changed, is the model of knowledge is now peer-to-peer. Because of the way we're all connected on the internet, the way we justify our knowledge is not based on an individual authority, but based on an aggregate of what our friends hold to be true, what institutions we respect, what individuals we respect, and we compose our own aggregates. The model of knowledge has become much flatter. It has become much more interconnected, and it has become much more democratic. It has also stopped being a single structure that we try and fit pieces into, and it's become a constant, ongoing process that is iteratively, constantly reviewing, checking, rejecting many things as false, assessing new things, rechecking old things. It goes on all the time. It's kind of a mess, frankly, but it's okay. We'll get used to this new non-authoritarian model of knowledge in just the same way that Plato and Socrates had to get used to a new non-authoritarian model of society. Let's go back to marketing. Okay, so you remember the declarative model is to change what we know about a brand so that we'll value it more highly and we'll hopefully want it more. Just a remark on valuing things more highly and wanting things more. Human desire seems to be quite empathetic. If you can persuade me you like something, sir, I'll probably want it. If 30 of you persuade me you all like the same thing, I will definitely want it. That's just the way we roll. As with the thing we want, the central thing we want, the central way in marketing we work is we build all that stuff onto a brand. Now what is a brand? Well, there are as many definitions of a brand as there are good marketing people. True sophistry in action. It's obviously a way of marking things, okay? It's obviously an imprint that you can put on things that you can recognize. But there's a greater meaning that we're trying to capture, which is its power to make you desire things, to make you trust things, to make you place higher value on things. This way of marking things has that power. What is that? What does that consist in? Well, my way of looking at that is a simple sort of universalist approach, and it's basically to say that the brand is actually all the thoughts that all the people have ever had about products that are marked in a certain way, and the value of that marking itself. The whole thing. So if you take a brand like Apple or Coca-Cola, you're talking about gazillions of thoughts in billions of heads. If you're trying to change those, which is what we do in marketing, you're doing something between herding a billion cats and fluid dynamics, basically. Obviously, what we try to do is be selective, so we try and pick the cats we're talking to, normally the rich ones. Normally, we want them to want the thing that we're trying to sell at the time. And then what we try to do is tell them pretty much exactly what they want to hear about the thing we're selling. We pick the most potent little fact and shove it in their direction. The way we make that effective is to dress the truth we're trying to give them as knowledge. The belief we want them to hold, we assert its truth, we give them justifications, we make absolutely sure it fits the whole picture of what they already know about the brand, and they sop it up because it's shaped like knowledge and in it goes. That's the way we do it. But it isn't knowledge. It's us telling them something because that's the way we've been paid. It is pure sophistry in action. And that is what pissed off Bill HIcks, and that is what I think would have annoyed Plato. So, gee, Sean, thanks for sharing that. That's kind of depressing. I'm really glad you were able to come and tell me that. No change then. But this is the point. There's been an incredible change. Just as the way the authoritarian version of knowledge has totally imploded, so the declarative model for advertising has completely collapsed as well. You cannot fool even some of the people some of the time if they keep talking to each other. If your great gift is to tell people that everybody else desires something, they now see that, because they're all connected, as their gift to give, not ours to instruct. As soon as we gave them a like button on Facebook for them to press, we passed them a baton of power that they will never give back. The connected consumer is the brightest light in the room. The cats have become the herders. So what's a well-suited sophist to do in the face of this utter onslaught? Well, what you have to do is dump the declarative model of communication. You have to dump that completely. That no longer works. You cannot tell people things they don't want to know. So what you do is you move to an associative model, and the associative model, it puts associations that aren't really true and aren't really false, so they can't really reject them in their minds. Let me just give you a quick example of how that's already started. That's a declarative ad, okay? Guinness is good for you. Well, no, it isn't actually, but there you go. Guinness for strength. Well, I once drank 10 pints of Guinness, and I don't think strength was the first thing that I'd report to such an august gathering. Okay, what about this one? A lovely day for Guinness. Could be, depends on the day, maybe, we'll see. What about this one? There, you're associating Guinness with a sort of, being the result of a fine evolutionary process. Again, it's a gentler thing, slightly funny, that's okay. And what about this one? You can't really argue with that, can you? That's pretty straightforward. But here's the last one, and in this one I think is the clue for where things go now. That's just beautiful. That's not really saying anything, it's just a very pretty thing. I work in entertainment marketing, principally, and what we do is we give part of our product to people. So if I'm trying to sell you a film, we'll put together a teaser of the movie. You will see 1 minute, 20 seconds worth of the movie. And this is my main thing, games, what we now do is we give you the game to play. You just download it, you play it for free. If you like it, if you want to sort of be more involved in it and do things with it, you get some more of the, you then start paying after that. This, I think, is the model going forwards, because even the associative model is still telling people what associations to make, and they're just getting bored of being told stuff. The new model is to invite a conversation about a brand, and to do that with a gift. Now, the gift could just be a joke. It could be a nice combination of music and images. It could be a symphony, a sports event, a nice event like this. But you raise awareness of your brand, you improve the associations with it, but most importantly, invite the commencement of a conversation by starting with a gift. That, I think, is going to be the future of marketing. That, I hope, Bill would have liked, but I'm not going to claim to know that. Thank you very much for your time.